Alright, for this video we are going to add some juice to our glass cup. So I've got my glass cup right here, and just to make it look a little more realistic as far as a scene goes, like if this glass cup was sitting on the counter next to a bowl like this, it would likely have some liquid in it. So we are going to add that into it. So you can do this however you want, but let me show you the way that I think works best to get some liquid in there. So I've got my glass cup. I'm going to go into edit mode. So press tab to go into edit mode on that. Now you have to decide how much liquid you want in there. I've already got a line right up here, but that's really close to the top and it's rarely that full. So I'm going to add another line down here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a bunch of these faces that are on the inside of the cup, and I'm going to duplicate it and close it off and make that the liquid inside. So decide how tall you want it, how full you want the cup, I guess, the liquid in the cup. And I'm going to do a loop cut, Control R, make sure you're in edit mode, Control R, and you also need to make sure it's on the inside. So kind of come into the inside, click, and then as you drag up, you can decide how tall, how full you want it. I'm going to choose right about there. If you don't get it in the right spot, don't use the arrow keys, because then it stretches it out. See, that comes out, it's coming straight down, and this is curved, so obviously I don't want that. But if you do want to move it, you can press G on the keyboard twice, G, G, and then it slides. It's kind of like reactivating that slide after the loop cut. So place it where you want, and then I'm going to kind of look down the barrel of this glass cup, and it's all smoothed out. I've got the smooth modifier, so I'm going to come over here to the modifier wrench. I've got that subdivision surface modifier. I'm going to click the eyeball right here to hide it. See, now I can see those faces and edges a lot better. So I am going to switch to face select right here, and I'm going to select all the faces that are underneath this line. And so it's the dots that if I click on the dot or do my border select around those dots, that's what will select it. So I could do the border select, but it's circles and you might get something extra. So I'm going to press escape on that. And there's another selection, which is circle select, C. And if I scroll wheel my mouse, it makes that selection area bigger or smaller. So I'm going to make it pretty big and just click and drag over those dots and get all of that selection in there. So I'll press escape now to get out of the circle select option, and that's my selection. So if I, let's get out of there and go to a front view 1 and orthographic view 5. This is all on the number pad. Oop, I've got some stuff in the way, but if I go to wireframe Z, that stuff doesn't matter because I see right through it. Now look, I can see the selection that I have. This is the area that I want to have my juice in, or other liquid. And so I've got that selected. I'm going to now duplicate it. So I'm going to duplicate, I'm still in edit mode. I'm going to duplicate just those faces. So a Shift D will duplicate that. And so now I've got that same size of the glass cup. I know it's the exact same size. And then I'm going to close it off and put it back in there. So I'm going to press Z. I guess it doesn't matter which direction I send it, but I'm going to just move it on the Z axis, and I'm going to move it just slightly above the cup. So it's out of the cup. I'm going to click. So I duplicated it, Shift D, and then pressed Z to constrain it to the Z axis, and I brought it above the cup. Now I can press my, well, I can zoom into that area, or I can do the little period key on the number pad on the right side. If I press that, it focuses on the area that I have selected, so that's kind of nice, really nice. And now I've got this object right here, but it's still part of this other object, which is the glass cup, and I want them to be separate. So I'm going to, now I still have it selected, I'm going to press P on the keyboard, P as in Paul, and I'm going to click on the selection. I'm going to separate it. That's what that key does, the P. Separate it by selection. Whatever I have selected, I'm going to separate it. Now it's a different object, but it's got the orange here and it's still got it selected here. It's kind of confused what I have selected, so I'm going to press tab to get out of object mode. You can press Z to get out of wireframe so you can see the different objects. And now I still have them both selected, so I'm going to right click on just my juice up here And then I'm going to go back to 1 and wireframe Z, front view and wireframe. So I've got that selected, and it's outside of the cup now. You know what? I'm going to get out of wireframe, and so press Z and 5 just to go back to, or get out of orthographic view. Right here's where it says orthographic or perspective. So if I press 5, ortho, 5 again, perspective. So it's just whatever you prefer, but I like to see it. Now I've got an issue here where, see how these materials are really light, the colors are really light, and this one's really dark. That tells me that this is inside out. And I know it's inside out because I took the inside of this cup, but this is like the inside of the cup, if that makes sense. It's this glass material, and I only took the inside of the cup, and before it was on the inside of this object. Now it's on the outside. So I'm going to flip that. If you didn't understand it, fine, just do this. Go into edit mode and select everything, A, to select all objects, or all faces. And then, let me show you a way to search for things. If you press spacebar, I can search for things. And I know this is the normals. I need to flip the normals. So I'm just going to type normal, and right down here, flip normals. See how that changed the color so it's a lot lighter? There's not those dark shadows, and there's the dark shadows on the inside. So I flipped the normals, meaning I made the inside the out and the outside the in. So, and in the menu, let me show you where that is if you don't like the search tool. If you go to mesh and then normals and flip normals, there it is. So I just pressed the space bar and typed normals and found the flip normals because I knew that's what I wanted. So now I've got this. I need to close it off on the top. And there's a couple other issues we need to deal with. Let me close this off first. So I'm edit mode. I'm going to get edge select and hold down Alt. In fact, I'm going to press A to deselect everything. Hold down Alt and select that edge loop right there. I clicked, holding down Alt, one of those edges. And now I'm going to extrude and scale down to 0 to get those to collapse down and put a top on this thing, because our liquid is not going to be hollow, it's going to be solid. So I need the top. So I'm going to press E, then S, then 0 to scale it, extrude it, and scale it down to 0. So there's the top. And I've got the bottom and the sides. So I've got everything there. So now I can slide it back in. But before I do that, I'm going to, it's got the subdivision surface, which is fine because it needs to be the same dimensions. But look, when I show the subdivision surface the top, that's not going to fly. Okay, the liquid doesn't do that on the top. It's got to be perfectly flat on the top. The bottom can be curved because it's going to fit back into the glass cup, which is also curved. I'm going to unhide the glass cup now. But the top is not good. So I'm going to press Tab, and how do we get it back up to the top? Or how do we get that definition back out to the edge? Loop cut, Control R, click it and drag all the way up to the top. It's still a little bit curved and I need it flat. So I'm going to do another loop cut on the top here. Control R, click and drag out to the edge. There we go. Now it's perfectly flat. The bottom, like I said, I'm going to keep it curved. So that solves that issue. There's my liquid. It's going to slide back into the cup perfectly, hopefully. And the last thing is the material. So I've still got this. This is the same material as the glass cup. It's glass. And so right here it's material 002, same material. So I'm going to switch that, but I'm not going to do it yet because I kind of like what it looks like. It looks like water, and then I'll change it to juice. So I'm going to go back to front view 1, orthographic view 5, wireframe Z. Then I can see it really well. I can see it slide right into that cup. So now I'm going to click the arrow, and you might notice that the origin is off from that. That's because it used to be part of this object as well. So if that bugs you like it does me, come down to Object, go to, Transform, and then this origin to center of mass. And then my origin point goes back up to the middle of the juice that I have. Watch as I slide this in. It's going to fit perfectly right over the top because it's the exact same faces that I had. And I'm just staying on that Z-axis that I constrained it to. Now the problem with this, we don't want it to fit perfectly because that means it's kind of going into the glass cup just a tiny bit. So I'm actually going to get it to where I think it's right on where it was, and then I'm going to scale it just slightly. In fact, I might come up just a little bit too. it does some weird things if I were to render it. If this juice was inside the glass cup, it looks weird. So to avoid that, I'm going to scale it down just slightly. It's better to be a little bit smaller and not the perfect size than to have it go inside the glass cup. So I'm going to come up from the bottom just a little bit and in from the sides by scaling it. Okay, that should do it. And if it still looks funny, I might scale it down just a little bit more. All right, I'm going to press Z to go out of wireframe mode. I've got my juice sitting in there. 5 to go out of orthographic view. And let's try this out. Now I found this model that I made several years ago, trying to make it look really realistic, and it looks pretty awesome. So you'll see what this looks like. So if I do a Shift Z, there it is right there. I'm gonna go to my camera's view and see it now. Now it looks like there is water in there because it was glass material, and that's pretty cool, but we're never gonna just drink water for breakfast. We need some juice or some milk, I guess. So let me switch that, and I'm gonna get out of my render view. Shift Z is what I did for the render view, and whoops, that's not what I wanted. I'm gonna get out of my camera view. Okay, I'm going to select actually inside the glass cup. I'm going to select that object there, the juice, and I'm going to click the X. Since it's the exact same, I don't want to change this material because it's the same material. It's using the same material for the glass cup. So I want to click the X once I've got that selected. Click the X. The cup still has the material number 2, but this has no material. So now I'm going to give it its own material. And if I want some orange juice, I'm just going to use the diffuse, and maybe I could do glossy later, and I'm just going to get an orangey juice, orange juicy color, and just test it out. Shift Z, and there we go. I've got some orange juice in my cup. Pretty cool. Now if I want some milk, of course, I could take that back to white. Just going to click and drag all these to 1. We're going to go back to white, and there's some milk. So here's one thing. Yours might not look as good as mine. I've got a lot of things set up, like I mentioned, but it always looks a little dark, so that's one thing. If you click on the color, make sure this is dragged all the way to the top to make it actually white, very white. But with the colors and the shadows and the glass, it's hard to get lots of light in there. It looks a little dim. So I can see now that my light's kind of backlit this scene, and so it's kind of dark up front. So I could go and just throw in a light, maybe close to the camera, behind the camera. So I'm going to do a Shift A. I'm going to get a lamp, and let's do a sun, just because that's super strong. I'm going to put it here behind the camera somewhere. And if I rotate this thing, it points in a certain direction. So I'm going to go to a side view and then a top view and rotate it again, just so it's going right through that cup. So that's where that sun light is pointing. So I'm going to give it a lot of light. I'm going to come over to the light settings over here, switch the size of it to 1, make it a little bigger. And this I'm not going to mess with until I do my temporary render, Shift Z, and then I can mess with this. But it's a sun lamp, so I'm not going to go like 1500 like I do with the point light. I'm going to go to 2 or 3 or 4. I'll try 4 just to see what that looks like. See that? It lightened it up a lot. So now I can see it a lot better through there. Oh, here's one other thing that I've applied that you might want to. In the render tab, right here, the camera, if you come down to sampling right here, sampling I haven't talked much about, but this is where you get your renders for how nice of quality it is. Maybe we have talked about it. For a really nice render, I'd probably always bump that up to 500, but don't do it until you're ready to render it. You know it's good, because it does take a long time. This is our temporary render. Anyway, this clamp indirect right here. With glass, I've noticed that this really clears it up a lot. It's still pretty grainy, but that's because I'm rendering the preview 32 samples. If I set this to render at 2 or 3 or 4 or 500, it's going to clear a lot of that up. But yours probably looks really bad because your clamp indirect is 0, and it's going to look super grainy and spotty. Yep, like that. So I like this clamp indirect. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but I saw a pro use it, so I use it. So put that to 1 and it clears a lot of that stuff up. It does make it a little bit darker, I noticed just now. There's lots of tricks, but lighting is one of the main things. If the lighting's really good, it looks pretty good inside. But don't worry about it looking a little dingy. That's just part of the realism of it because it's a glass cup, and we can worry about that later. As long as you have some juice or milk in there, we're good to go. Another thing actually is to make it glass but give it a yellow tint, and it looks kind of like apple juice. So anyway, that's it. You can render it. Mine looks fine on the sides. If yours looks funny, like the color's coming all the way out to the edge of the glass cup, that's where you'll need to go in and scale that juice object a little bit more and make it a little bit smaller so it's just for sure not touching the edges of that glass cup. Okay.